It's lights out and away we go at Imola this weekend. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I am Catherine and it's race weekend again. Formula One is back. We've been waiting 3 weeks since Bahrain. I'm really excited, 3 weeks is a long time to wait, and I'm very excited to see what the boys have been getting up to this weekend. I cannot wait to see what the boys have in store for us come Sunday in Imola. So let's start with qualifying. Let's look at it, let's talk about it, let's see where the boys ended up, who ended up where out of all the 10 teams. Let's talk about it. Feel free to join the chat, leave your comments down below in the comment section, and good things only, no mean things. Do not leave mean things in the comment section, no matter who you support. It's only love and fun here at F1 Catherine, so let's get it on. Let's start with Bottas. Valtteri did pretty well in qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, but something must have gone wrong because he did not end up on pole position or number 2 or even number 3. Valtteri will be starting at P8, so I'm wondering what went wrong. Valtteri tends to have a bit of bad luck. Sometimes he drives really well and then something messes him up in the pit, or something happens to the car. So I'll be waiting to hear more about that. Mercedes tend to post race analysis, and I'll be looking forward to watching that on their Instagram to find out what went wrong with Bottas and how he wound up starting at P8. So yeah, well, at least that's what I'm thinking, that it must have been something to do with the car. Of course, at this point I don't know, we'll find out and see, but I feel pretty bad for the Finn. He's a really good driver, but bad luck seems to get in the way so many times. He's gotta do something about that. The next one I'm going to talk about is Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda crashed, and so he was not able to complete his qualifying, which sucks because he did really well in his Formula One debut. He finished number 8 last month in Bahrain. It's a real pity that we won't be seeing him in the top 10 to start, but I think he'll manage all right. He's a good driver. He showed, that he can handle the pressure of driving in Formula One. The thing though about his crash was that he did not seem that bothered as he jumped out of his car after he crashed, and a lot of the times you'll hear drivers, swearing. Not that I support that, but a lot of the times you'll visibly see drivers upset about crashing, but no, not Yuki. He just jumped out of his car and headed on to the pit where they took him. And yeah, I'm thinking maybe it's a bit cultural, because in his culture, the Japanese are known for holding their emotions in check and not emoting wildly like the Americans or other people on the grid. So maybe that's it, or I don't know, maybe it's just because he's new, and after a while we'll start to hear him swearing and cussing when he crashes. I don't know, we'll see what happens. I'm not saying that's the behavior that it should be. All I'm saying is he didn't seem to be very bothered. The car got pretty smashed though, so that's going to be a lot of work for his engineers to get that car back up and ready again for tomorrow. So best of luck to them. Speaking of newcomers, let's talk about Nikita. This time round, Nikita did not spin. You remember Nikita spun a lot in March in Bahrain. He was nicknamed, what was he nicknamed? Nikita Mazepin. Because I think his surname is Mazepin. So yeah, people online nicknamed him Nikita Mazepin. This time round he did not spin. However, he had his time deleted because he exceeded track limits. A lot of people exceeded track limits this race, so the stewards are not having it this time. It's it's a big debate around track limits and it's getting controversial, so we'll see how Nikita does. Hopefully he'll get to drive the whole race, because last time he did not. He spun and He didn't even do a full lap. So his Formula One debut was a disaster, shall I say. So let's see what happens tomorrow with Nikita Mazepin. Next one I want to talk about is Sergio Perez. I'm very happy for Sergio. Checo did a really good job. He's going to be starting number 2 tomorrow, which is pretty good. It is very, very good. Considering how unceremoniously his team dropped him at Racing Point, which is now Aston Martin, considering how unceremoniously they dropped Sergio Perez for Sebastian Vettel, you know. As soon as Sebastian became available, you know, they were ready to let Checo go and just bring in the, you know, the former world champion. And as much as I like Seb as a driver, you know, he seems like a good human, he seems like good people, you know. I felt really bad for Checo being let go like that, not having a team, even after he had performed really, really well for Racing Point, now Aston Martin. So I'm very excited for him that he's doing very well in Red Bull and that, you know, he's getting to show what he's made of. He's also got a really tough boss. You either perform or you're out very quickly at the drop of a hat. I still feel bad for Albon. It is what it is, and yeah, so I'm very pleased for Sergio. He'll be starting number 2 tomorrow, and that's a big deal. Speaking of people that have driven for Red Bull, let's talk about Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly is another young one that's, you know, that's been doing pretty well lately, and he did well this weekend as well, and he'll be starting at position 5. He'll be starting 5th on the grid, and that's pretty good for him. Let's see if he can hold that position. Pierre Gasly was driving for Red Bull, but you know, the pressure was too much for him in Red Bull. And Red Bull ended up dropping him because I suppose he was not performing, and they instead replaced him with Albon. Albon came in, and Albon was doing a good job, you know, but he just, I suppose, was not getting to number 2, number 1, number 3, which is what Red Bull wants, because Red Bull badly wants to get Mercedes. So as soon as the position, you know, as soon as Sergio Perez became available, they dropped Albon. You know, they dropped him like a hot rock and just let Albon go. So that's Gasly, that's Albon, and now, I mean, good for Sergio Perez, right? Because he also got dropped in the same manner. So I suppose things always turn out well for someone. But I mean, poor Albon. Anyway, back to Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly is doing well, which is really good, you know. I guess Red Bull is keeping an eye out for him. Right now he's driving for AlphaTauri. When Red Bull dropped Pierre Gasly, they demoted him. I don't know why they call it demoting. I don't like it. I guess because Toro Rosso is the baby team of Red Bull. Well, not really baby team. It's sort of like their training grounds. Toro Rosso is sort of a training grounds for Red Bull drivers. And so when Red Bull let Pierre Gasly go, they sent him back to Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso actually changed its name to AlphaTauri. A lot of these teams have changed their names for 2021. So yeah, Pierre Gasly is doing a really good job. I suppose he's hoping that, you know, by proving himself, Red Bull will take him. I mean, winning is always the best revenge. If people do not believe in you, just get out there and win. And that's what Pierre Gasly has been doing. Number 5 is not bad at all. I'm excited for him. Let's see where he goes. When you think of Pierre Gasly, you sort of think of the guys that are sort of in the same league as him, the young ones. You know, I think of George Russell as well. George Russell unfortunately did not make it into the top 10. He'll be starting at P12. He seemed really disappointed, he and his team, but he's a really good driver. I mean, he's shown, you know, time and again that he can drive and that he can do a good job. Even Mercedes trusted him well enough to sub for Lewis back when, you know, Lewis could not make it to the race. And George Russell did a good job. But obviously, you know, there were some things that didn't go right, and, you know, there are issues of experience, because you don't just wake up one day and you're suddenly world champion. A lot of learning and experience goes into that, and P12 is not too bad. when you're in pit wall, you've got only one car has to overtake, to be able to win some points for the race. So that's all George Russell has to do, and from there he can just keep going up. So, let's see what happens with George Russell tomorrow. Let's talk about Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz last year was driving for McLaren, and then for whatever reason he made the decision to move to Ferrari, which a lot of people in McLaren believe that Carlos Sainz was running away from the competition, that is Lando Norris. Lando Norris is younger, Carlos Sainz is a lot more experienced, and for a time there, I suppose he was, mentoring or, offering maybe some guidance to Lando Norris. I don't know, but perhaps something like that, when one of your teammates is more experienced. But then by the end of the season last year, Lando Norris was starting to fight back. He was starting to race. And some people believe that this is what Carlos Sainz is running away from. I mean, you don't want the younger, less experienced member of your team to be doing better than you. Your team starts questioning your value and starts perhaps to think that, you're depreciating in value. And some people think that that's what Carlos Sainz was running away from when he left McLaren for Ferrari. Carlos Sainz, of course, does not agree. But Ferrari's car last year did not really fill anyone with confidence. Sebastian Vettel was struggling there. Charles Leclerc no longer had his, overconfident smile, whatever you may call it. So Ferrari drivers weren't very happy last season, and now Carlos Sainz is one of them. His Ferrari debut, he didn't do bad in Bahrain in March. The first race of the season, he did quite well. He wound up in position 8. If the Ferrari cars are fast this season, then Carlos Sainz will not have reason to regret his leaving McLaren. So let's see what happens. Lando Norris said last year that he thinks Carlos will regret his decision to leave McLaren. But you never know. Let's see. I mean, when Lewis joined Mercedes, a lot of people said he was making a mistake, and look where he's gotten with Mercedes. So, you gotta do what's right for you. Today, during qualifying, he did not make it into the top 10. He's a good driver. He's shown time and again that he can do it. So he'll likely get a good position, and let's see. I seem to think everyone will get a good position. That's because they are all good drivers, most of them at least. There are some that are, no, I shouldn't be saying that. But I don't know, some of them are good, and it's F1, it's a race. You never know what can happen. I mean, if the rain falls, that's something else. If someone's car gets a problem, anyone can win the race, Let's talk about Lewis now. Lewis is my favorite driver on the grid. I like Lewis. He seems good-natured, he's humble, When you look at old videos of Lewis, you can see that he's not changed much from when he was a young boy to when he is now, in terms of how he expresses himself, the calmness and the humility with which he speaks. And, Lewis to me just seems good people. And I really like seeing Lewis and Sebastian together. They get along. You can just see two people that respect each other. I haven't seen that with a lot of these other, especially the older drivers. With the younger ones, they had, there are things going on, teasing each other. But these ones that have been on the circuit for a much longer time, it's good to see the camaraderie between Lewis and Sebastian. I think they're both nice, good-natured people. So every time Lewis wins, I like that. It's a good race for me. And I always like for him to get pole position, which he got today. So Lewis will be starting number 1 tomorrow. Yay! Which is really nice. It's a real pity that Valtteri will not be joining him. But let's see what happens. Valtteri is a really good driver, so he might end up right there in number 2. But it's going to be some real competition tomorrow. So yes, Lewis got pole position, but it was neck and neck for a moment there between him and Max, because Max is really gunning for Lewis. Red Bull is gunning for Mercedes. But personally, I'm happy for Lewis. I'm happy for Mercedes. Despite Max's best efforts, he did not get into number 1. He did not get into number 2. Max will be starting out at number 3 because his teammate Sergio Perez beat him to number 2. which a lot of people were surprised by. Kind of been waiting for it to happen. But Max has not been beaten by a teammate in a very long time, and it's going to be interesting to see how Max handles this new dynamic, having a team member that can beat him, someone that's clearly as good, if not better than him. I wonder if that will, put some humility into him. I like when a person is humble, Humble people are good, empathetic people that understand that they're not better than everyone. That other people are good too, other people are skilled too, and humility is a very important quality. Like buy yourself some today. So back to Verstappen and Sergio. Yeah, Max will be starting number 3, so it's going to be a pretty interesting race. And you know what? Lewis and his team, Lewis and his engineer Bono, were very surprised that Lewis wound up on pole. I suppose because in Bahrain they got really tough competition from the Red Bulls, they got tough competition from Max. 2 things about Lewis and Bono being surprised that Lewis got pole. I'm wondering, is it just because of the competition between, Red Bull and Mercedes, because Red Bull was pushing really hard? Or is it also because there were maybe some issues with the car? Because Lewis has shown that even when the car has issues, he can push that car and just drive it and get it there. Since Valtteri had issues with his own car, or at least I'm choosing to believe that that's the reason he ended up as number 8, was that, he had issues with his own car. I'm wondering if perhaps there are some issues that Lewis was also worried about that were causing the cars to not go as they would have expected them to go, such that when he wound up in P1, he was very surprised. I think we'll find out tomorrow, and we'll also find out from the race analysis that Mercedes post on their Instagram page. So I'll be looking forward to hearing more about that. Lando Norris would have started number 3 because he drove really well. So he would have started in position number 3, but he got his time deleted for exceeding track limits, which is a real pity. But he's showing real promise, and even with his laps deleted, even with his flying lap deleted, even with his lap time deleted, he'll be starting in P7, which is good. He's got a real fighting chance, could end up in number 3. Who knows, anything can happen. But I always want the first 2 spots for Lewis and Valtteri. But obviously it's a race and anything can happen, and it doesn't always end up like that. But just so you know who I wrote for, not pretending. Yeah, Lando Norris got his race time deleted. Lance also got his lap times deleted. So it'll be very interesting to see tomorrow how this whole track limits issue gets handled, because it was very controversial. The last race, people got warnings, and some people were unhappy that, they got the warnings, or that other people were exceeding the track limits. But I think in the past, a lot of drivers have exceeded the track limits without big consequence and without getting, a big slap on their wrists from the race stewards. But this time round, the stewards are taking it very seriously, because, remember last match in Bahrain, remember if you watch, but if you did not watch, what happened towards the end, that was, kind of big deal, apart from when other racers, other drivers just, slightly exceed the track limits, as they drive, because when you exceed, you get some warnings, and then you get a warning, and if you keep doing it, then, you get a flag. What happened was, towards the last lap, it was neck and neck between Lewis and Max. And Max was pushing really hard and trying to overtake Lewis. And Lewis just wasn't letting it go. He wasn't having it, and it was really tight. And all of us were just, on tenterhooks, wondering what's going to happen, And then Max overtook Lewis. But Max exceeded the track limits a lot to be able to overtake Lewis. And obviously that's not acceptable, And so Max's team, the engineers, told him over the radio to give back the position to Lewis. And he had to do that. And come on, you can't overtake someone to win a race by getting off the track. It's a whole different case when you're just trying to negotiate a corner and then you exceed the track limits. But when you're trying to win the race and you're overtaking the person that's number one, for you to then get off the track to overtake that person, like that's not going to fly. There is a track for a reason. But anyway, so the race stewards are being real serious about it this time, and they're not letting anyone get away with anything. A lot of people are trying it, and during qualifying they got their lap times dated. The thing is, when you exit the track limits, you sort of get an advantage, you gain time, and so they're trying to discourage that. So I'm going to be very interested to see how people handle this tomorrow, because there are some people that are notorious for exceeding the track limits. Really, I think all of them do it. So let's see what happens tomorrow with that track limits issue. Now, some people say that, Lewis should have, Max. Some people think Max should have just gone ahead, like continued overtaking Lewis and not given the position back, and then, waited for his penalty, because perhaps it would have been a 5-second penalty. Now, if it was going to be a 5-second penalty, obviously Lewis would have won. But some people think that it would have been better for Lewis to win that way, by Max getting a penalty. Like, I don't understand it. This doesn't even make sense to me at all. But it is what it is, and we all have our different opinions. And yeah, that's the interesting thing about sports. Sometimes people get to debate, as long as it doesn't get nasty. When people debate about things, then it's okay. So if you have any debates, any points, any comments, and you want to leave them in the comment section below, do not be nasty, do not be mean, but I encourage you to leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, smash it, destroy it, obliterate it. Just hit it if you enjoyed this, and if you plan to join me for a few more chats like this about F1. It's all love and fun here at F1 Catherine. I hope you can join me many more times. And yeah, that's it from me. Enjoy the rest tomorrow and have fun. See you again in the next one.